my agenda items have been like, you know, me, like top heavy stuff. So continue to give me stuff as you go. I know Sharon emailed me a day or two ago and said, hey, when we get back from break, can we talk about, you know, these things? So I already kind of cut and pasted that and added that onto the April 15th agenda. So continue to do that as things pop up and you think it'll benefit the bigger group to, you know, have those bigger conversations about. So the first thing on there, is the learning target thing, right? I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get a chance to connect with Allie. I called her twice and emailed her, and we haven't been able to connect. But Sharon, I think, just sent to me or everybody what you guys used last year. Or that was just like all the UBD documents, though.
Both. So she's got a shared folder that actually at Learning Summer Institute last year, Jason shared with me, said, hey, you have access to this folder. It's supposed to be for all content areas to house their learning targets. And this was used for Infinite Campus. So that's what she worked off of to build Infinite Campus.
Okay.
And so that's where things are. It's not a spreadsheet. There's an individual folder for each content area. I'm not sure about elementary and stuff, but at least there's, I look at mine all the time. And some UBDs are in there. I think I might have put mine in there, but I know like EHEs is in there for world languages and that. So.
Well, and I was going to ask Allie before I got here to say, to me, I opened that folder, which I already had access to, and it's still a little bit of a needle in a haystack. If I am Allie Poff, I don't want to have to double click on every course syllabus to find your targets, especially if I'm like inputting these into Infinite Campus. So my wonder was, what I was going to ask Allie is, what would she need from you guys to just literally, and I'm picturing almost like course by alpha spreadsheet with the learning targets. I don't want to recreate. Yeah, I don't want to have you guys necessarily recreate the wheel, but once we decide on what we're going to use, the message that I need to tell you is you need to, the sooner the better, get Allie your targets for next school year. Amy might say, you know what, you can just, what she's got in there this year, she doesn't have to do anything to. Nothing's changing. Carry it over. Sharon might say, that's CTE. See, that's what
so
I want everybody
did,
to have. Yeah.
What I did, and I have one for each department, is I put each class, I put the learning target in there, but there's also a character limit for that.
Right.
There's a formula that you can put in, and I think I don't know if you can do it in here or I put it in Excel and then put it back. That tells you how many characters are in there. So then what I did is I had the character count, and then I had the revised target. So this is still the target that I have teachers use, the ones, and if it's in yellow, that's for Infinite Campus because it met the number of characters. So I have two columns, one for the original target and then one for the abbreviated target.
That's exactly what I'm picturing that she would need.
And she loved this when I did it last year because
again,
I have so many courses too.
That is just not.
Maybe we could just build off that and have a tab for each content area.
I would like that if we could have you send it to the coordinators.
And I'm trying to think if
no, you make a copy of that.
Yes.
Send the copy, new name, which is 2015-16 secondary learning targets, and everyone will have a tab. Does that seem reasonable?
Because I just got dropped a bombshell yesterday, like, I thought you were going to revise our learning targets.
No, yeah, to be honest, before you leave, Allie would say the sooner the better. So, don't wait. If you know, just get them done and get them in there.
I gave her some in probably end of July. I think the cutoff last year was end of July, and I tried not to do that, but I had a couple courses that were finishing up.
Yeah.
But
honestly, before you leave would be nice so that she has that all set and ready to go. Hey, Bruce.
For what, summer?
Yeah.
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 And I know you want everyone in there, but for Allie's purposes, she only needs ones if we're changing.
Right. If there's no changes, I would still want you to have the class listed and just write so she doesn't have to guess are they changed? Is English 11 changing or are they the same?
Yeah.
And what else was I going to mention? Okay. So are we all clear on just the basic sort of skill and content learning targets for each of your areas? That's the first thing.
Can I add one thing to that, Joey?
Yes.
Before you left? Last year, Amy Stepniak kind of created a common process to vet them, so it wasn't just somebody decided to make targets and then we just changed them. So we just had some common language around it. So if you're thinking of going that path, I'd happily share that and you and I can talk through that. If you want some help with how we had that, just some common questions and a common process.
And can I add, well, one is that process was incredibly helpful, but so that it was common of like, I think that kind of helped to make it, this is what a learning target is supposed to be. But two is, as we go as coordinators to work with teams on revising learning targets or updating them, are we under the premise of the Waukesha for Learning? The model I know was targets would not be weighted in the regular courses. AP was a different land. Is that something, because then we would need to communicate that to Ally, correct? If we're going to let people start weighting targets, that's got to.
I think it's a secondary step. I mean, I don't see anywhere where there's a column on there for that.
But
But-
Ally would need to know that's something Ally would plug in, correct? Or is that something
I don't
teachers
know.
plug in on their
No,
own?
teachers just have
plug that in,
autonomy,
change
right,
on their own
Okay.
right.
individually, or are we saying now that it's common by department or what within the
I think it's
School and-
still professional.
professional judgment
Yep.
on their, okay?
Yep.
Would that take care of what we were talking about last night then?
Right. And I think we probably need to kind of talk about what the response to those questions, as opposed to you can or can't. Why would you want to do that?
Correct.
And coach them through it.
Yeah.
But I think the direction of, I mentioned that at a meeting yesterday, maybe we wouldn't have to wait a certain way, and I got a lot of like, oh, that makes sense, but we should open it up to do that.
Because otherwise they want to actually change all the learning targets and group them together. Because they're like, but I thought we were sticking to, we have 4 targets, they each gotta be 25%. And they want to change the learning targets because they think they're held to that standard in campus. And now that we're, I didn't know how to explain it, but if it's up to the teacher's discretion how they want to do it. They know that they do more in one area, then they can decide that.
And I guess I'm just thinking about middle school right now. Like I've never gotten a request from a middle school teacher to change their learning targets because they're so deeply aligned with what they know Common Core is asking of them that none of them could make the argument, I want to weight writing more than reading because Core doesn't do that. And so my only caution would be when somebody says, I want to change or weight my targets, there's still, I feel there should still be some sort of rationale behind that decision being made, that I trust teachers' judgments, but to say I want to weight something just because it should really be aligned to what kids should know be able to do.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be the same. If I have 2 Spanish ones and I've got a class that, let's say, is mostly native speakers, I'm probably not going to be doing as much speaking. I'm probably going to be pushing the reading and the writing. And so that's the conversation I've had with my teachers is I have this group over here that doesn't need as much practice on this skill. They need it in these areas more because they're deficient here. But my other group, they need this and all of this. So if we're giving them that, if they're able to make those professional judgments on their own according to the classes they teach, maybe it is different from one level one to another. So that's okay.
Again, I would, as the coordinator, have that conversation. If we expect the same outcomes from level 1 students, my wonder would be why would that be weighted differently? That goes to teacher discretion more than student learning outcomes, just from me just listening to you say that. So if we, again, have the same desired outcomes for all level 1 students, then I would imagine our assessment practices and standards weightings should be similar. So I would ask those questions. Otherwise, it's pretty teacher dependent then, and it doesn't, I would just ask why. Why is teacher so-and-so weighting more if we want to get a level student to this performance at the end of level 1? What do we all need to do to get them there?
I guess I'm just wondering if you've got kids that are proficient in one area already, why do I need to spend time? in
Well,
that
that's on a
group?
kid basis then, not a
Right.
teacher basis.
That's
which
what
is
I'm
what I
thinking.
thought I heard you say. Okay.
And based on where you spend your time, because I agree that's being responsive,
Mhm.
but then that doesn't, I don't think that necessarily changes the weight. The assessment is still the same. Can they do it or can't they?
Right.
The amount, like, you shouldn't test kids more on one thing. Maybe the amount of assessments they have in there, but the
That's what they're
weight,
saying is the amount of the assessments.
the weight of the standard.
At the end of the day, if I only have 3 assessments in this listening area, but we just naturally do more speaking, I don't want the 1 or 2 listening assessments that they weighted at 25% to be counted against them, or I think that's what they were saying, when they have so many more and they're speaking.
Like the key piece is time. They'll have a lot of teachers that talk about, I'm spending so much more time on this because it's so much harder. But in the end, is that one skill more important than the next? Is what you have to ask, right? You have to get them to ask.
Right.
So that's the tough conversation.
It is,
Right.
because they know that they value, at least my teachers, they value all of them, and they know that they're all equal. They're all the same, well, they're all equal skills. But what they do with them, where they differentiate based on the student's needs. I plan on spending a whole lot of time doing speaking with a native speaker. I'm drilling them more on their reading and their writing skills. But in that same group, I might have somebody that needs all of those.
Just to fill in Bruce and Jill, hi. I feel like you're on the outer circle.
That's okay, because I'm not sure how long I'm gonna stay.
Okay,
and I prefer
okay.
to be there.
Just agenda item 1, Amy has a really nice succinct spreadsheet that lists courses, learning target, and then proposed Infinite Campus learning target. And I say proposed because there's a character limit as to how many you can put in. Allie really liked that spreadsheet from Amy last year. And so Amy's gonna make a copy of that spreadsheet and then have our department tabs down below, so that then you would enter your courses and learning targets. If there's no changes from what was there this year, then just say that, no changes, kind of carry over what you have. If there are some learning targets in some specific courses that you know are changing, just make sure you get that in there for her. The sooner the better, but like by June, get that to her.
This might be a good time to bring it up to you folks, because last year it was last minute, and Jill and I really didn't have an opportunity to talk to teachers about. We put in your learning targets for your areas in our classes that matched. So our English learning targets were basically your learning targets. Social studies the same. Anything we had in special ed science, we use science learning targets right down the line.
Okay.
Algebra, whatever. After reflecting on it, because the expectation is those are the areas you're going to be assessing, right? And after reflecting on it a year and seeing that some teachers aren't hitting certain areas and certain targets because of the IEP goals of their students in their class, we're changing our learning target to be kind of singular in nature for the most part. There will be classes where there's still learning targets, but in general for our special ed classes,
Especially for our targeted instruction classes.
for
Okay.
targeted in reading, math, and writing, it's going to be that the students will meet their IEP goals. It's going to be the learning target. So you can't put every kid's IEP goal in there, but if we say they're working on their own IEP goal,
Right.
then they can assess the kid, and then the data they have will also match the data they need to provide proof of and evidence of the IEP goal being
I get
met
that.
in progress monitoring.
Okay,
So that was
Makes
a
sense.
change, and you and I had talked about it in regards to
North
So what I would-
specifics and
kid
things. Yep,
teacher at North was struggling.
Yep.
Because his things on the board didn't match what the kids needed. So we just changed it, and it worked really well for him.
agree.
It really put him at ease, and like he was able to work with the kids where they were at.
Yeah, and really frame and focus his instruction around that too.
Absolutely.
Very purposefully, yeah.
So we have
Okay.
spent two meetings so far after school, kind of them developing their kind of what they're gonna teach,
Okay,
how they're gonna teach it. And next time, we're gonna talk a little bit about that goal, and how
Okay.
that works for them.
okay. So again, this conversation just has been about like the content and skill learning targets, but then there's 2 other pieces that we need to have conversations about. One is just at the forefront of my thinking from my former life as a high school principal, and that is around the ACT anchor reading standards. for the high schools. So that's one conversation I want to ask about. And the second, just learning target conversation is around this, probably the citizenship rubric indicators. So if we want to start with the ACT Anchor reading standards, I'll just give a quick example of last year. As a high school principal, I wanted my band director, Greg Redner, to have access to the one or two, probably one, Anchor, reading standard accessible in his music class. And because our music coordinator didn't put that down as a learning target, he was never able to give feedback on that. Now, he did informally and in other ways, but not through Infinite Campus. And so I guess my question for everyone around the table continues to be, if our high schools in particular continue to have school improvement plans and SLOs and PPGs around the Anchor reading standards, my question then becomes, what do we do with that, and what do we do about importing the accessibility into all areas? Amy?
I don't know if this is what you're thinking, but what I did, and it might lend itself better to CTE, is we built in, and there's still a couple of classes in family consumer science I have to do it, but in all of the business classes and all of the tech ed classes, we have a communication learning target. Because a lot of what they do, let's say, and you think about the design process, it's about communicating at the end. So sometimes that communication might be written, sometimes it might be reading, whatever. So what I did is we all have a communication learning target as one of our learning targets. What we did then in our learning target rubric is we left it blank as far as the rubric goes, but then on the sheet that they work off of, I have a link to the English one-liners and all of the new reading rubrics are all on that same sheet. And so then what teachers can do is say, you're being assessed on this communication target. Here is the rubric is empty, but then I'm going to copy and paste whichever English standard or reading standard you want in there, and they copy and paste from there.
Okay.
So I'll just quick show you an example. Just take me 1 second to bring up if you want to keep going. But that was what we did.
So go
Mm-hmm.
ahead.
I met with all the coaches this morning from the high school level to talk about my L1 through L5. And this came up because this is one of using those ACT reading strands was one of the ways that I was going to try and measure my SMART goal. So at South, what they're doing, I'm sure most of you know what they're doing at South with these ACT reading strands, but every department was given one of the strands. They didn't pick them out, they were given, and they designed benchmark assessments around them. At North, each department picked their strands, and it could have been more than one. So one of the things that we talked about today with that team was, what would it look like if we kind of took both of those models and meshed them a little bit, like every department kind of owned one of the eight pieces. So like close reading is an ACT reading strand, but there's 2 or 3 rubrics underneath that. So what would it look like if every department owned one? And we all have a way, if literacy is a part of all of our SMART goals, we have a way to measure that now. The suggestion though was, and I like this, is on Infinite Campus, is there a way, because the reporting out is the key for people, is there a way that when I enter in an assignment, so I put in, okay, To Kill a Mockingbird summative or whatever, that I can just click on one of the, like whatever strand that I was focused on. Instead of it being, I enter in 2 separate assignments, like one assignment for To Kill a Mockingbird and one assignment for just that strand. Because North was saying that like when they pull out their data, it's like you have 29,000 assessments now. Like so
You're going to tag it, basically.
yeah, somehow to be able to like throw it onto an assignment so I don't have to enter anything in twice. It's just like a rubric that we would normally use on an assessment. I throw it on there but I somehow tag that, that it's ACT strand 1 or whatever.
But
Are they trying to avoid grading it twice?
No, because the grading it is, it's the same rubric that you would use on the assessment. But instead of titling the assessment, like they want to be able to be clear with students and parents, like this was
To kill
to
them
kill
off.
a mockingbird, but then still be able to run a report on all of the, like I use
Assessments that had to do with,
right, I use the rubric under close reading. So a way to like tag it so that they don't want to title their assessments, which I get. Like I don't want to title my assessment close reading because as a kid and a parent now that I know you're gonna.
Well,
I
no,
know.
I'm looking at Jason because how,
close reading.
Yeah,
You could do it
right.
that way.
You could
Right.
totally do it that way.
I wonder
This
if
is
categories might be around.
Yeah.
Form some of the
Yep.
ACE standard standard 1, 2, 3, 4, and you could put it into that category. That would be
Yeah.
another way to sort it.
Yep.
But are those,
That. Oh, sorry. go ahead.
are those categories, would you want to attach grade to that, count towards, that would have weight?
Well, but the grade, no, because that they're using the rubric on the
That's what I'm saying.
assessment.
So
So that part, it's the only problem was how do you pull the data? Like that was.
well, and no, I'll answer that question because some teachers last year were worried about, well, what if we don't want this to count in the overall grade, but we still want to get feedback? So I think that's a valid question that teachers will ask. Well, but then
you
how
could
do
put it in
get-
as formative.
Yeah.
Oh, but how do you get the data? You're saying?
Yeah. So I mean, a couple things, and Jason, you brought this up to me when we knew we were going to have this conversation. You mentioned math, doing something with learning targets, but then having it pared down to like more ICANNs, maybe.
Yeah, so we worked with Allie, we were able to have, just kind of like we did last year in standard score, we were able to have our target and then have indicators underneath that are essentially always attached to that target. So if I have a reading standard in English class, I could put all these indicators underneath that then those would be their own categories. Those are essentially standards as well.
And now though, is that, so all those indicators, say there's like 15 indicators under a learning target.
Yeah.
Do parents see those 15 indicators or do they only see the working target?
Depends, so there's two places that parents see. So parents can see report card. Report cards can be customized to see whatever we want. But when they go into their campus and just get that quick view, they're going to see everything and there's no way for us to adjust that.
And I guess that's what we need to know because again, if there's 10, Anchor ACT reading standards and we decide that science is going to use close reading and they're just going to use that one strand, then basically you have 9 ACT reading standards hanging out there that parents are like, why aren't you doing anything in that area?
That's a good
And
point.
so, right, so that's why, again,
Could we just assign or have them pick beforehand and then you just enter it in
I
going
think
into
that'd
year
be
one?
Didn't you do something at North where they had to label as part of their assignment, like an abbreviation at the end, or did that not work?
It's just,
But then when you run the report, like.
Oh, you couldn't just
Well,
pull
it's-
that out.
Well, yeah, it's
it's a thing, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if
but I'm
you-
just thinking if you if building principles or
That'd be
and I
awesome.
wouldn't
If
say even assign it,
departments-
but however you want to do it, but every department knows.
If you
This
think
is what
we
we're
can get
focusing
our
on.
high school principals to facilitate that with groups before they leave, similarly to, I mean, I think this is our goal with the Waukesha for Learning team is like honestly creating a grade book setup as well as a syllabus before they leave. That's our goal before they leave for the school year. Then to me, that would be in place because they would have already decided on what Anchor reading standard. How far away do you think we are from that?
South is doing it.
No, so
Yeah.
it's north. I mean, I can say
I
I
think we're
can't,
close.
I think at West it's similar, but I think all of my teachers have it under the IDT. They're using one of those rubrics.
Yeah.
It's its main idea and hurry and summarizing. That's it.
I think. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jen.
I'm just thinking it is happening at those places, but it's happening at different levels depending on the subject.
Sure. But I mean, talk about, in my words, a forced sense of literacy ownership. And to have that strand from, like I said, your band teacher to your FIED teacher to your English 11 teacher.
There's 8 reading pieces. And to me, the only caution I would have, and I know South did this, was just being strategic about who's getting what. Because, like word choice or word meanings
Right.
that really, right, but that could go, like vocabulary instruction, how, that can go anywhere, but things like theme and,
Right.
you know, point of view, that would be a perfect one for social studies. So
Right.
I just
Right.
mean,
I personally go to see the
How.
same
At all three.
at all of these.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Mine are
the whole, like,
presented
what
anyway.
departments pick
I
what.
don't think
Yeah,
anybody
like,
wants
I
to
think
change.
cause and effect makes sense.
Right.
Everywhere.
Same thing in our area, word choice, they, I think that, I don't know if it's at North or what, but last year when they were experimenting, and they had U2SLs, that my teachers had a hard time with the word choice. I have one teacher that's still using that this year, but it might be for an upper level. Most of my teachers are using that, the ones under the IDT thing. And that's like the inferring, summarizing, main idea, and that fits nicely with, to encapsulate all of world languages at the high school. One thing I do want to add to that is there going to be a committee that looks at these rubrics again this summer? Because I've been having a lot of conversations. Jason was with me. I've got some teachers that are struggling because of how the rubric works. I'll take the one for the main idea that North chose, and they do an ASW like every 6 weeks. They are on it. The problem, there's some problems they feel with the rubric in that the kid can infer and pick out supporting details, but they can't do the main idea. So they get a 0. So I'm just wondering if we're gonna add some of those in, is there some fluctuation there in the communication gonna happen this summer about a committee to look at those again before we readapt them?
From English land, we definitely are gonna be looking at rubrics. And I don't disagree with you that maybe there needs to be tweaks, but my piece would be instructing teachers to understand, A, how to address that skill in your class. So how do I scaffold for that? And B, how to assess, does my assessment allow me to really get at that skill? Because to throw the rubric on there, I think it's there. I think that that's the bigger, to me, that's your bigger value add. How are each of our departments, and that's a perfect place for us, I think, to support. If scientists pick cause and effect should be in your L1 somewhere, right? Like, we support that work because the rubric, we have the best rubric in the world, and if teachers don't know how to scaffold and assess it, it doesn't matter. That's my bigger push is how do we support teachers to understand how to do this.
So what you're talking about is just taking that reading standard to be part of it, not that it would be the only one, correct? Because I don't want that to be the only target, because
Yes.
it might be that they want to assess something else on a
Absolutely.
particular
Yeah,
day.
they would just have the
But-
option.
So the tagging.
Yep.
So
Yep.
this is what I did. I have this, so this is our learning target rubric. The last target says communicate effectively as writers and speakers to the intended audience. So then this link takes them to a list of all of the English one-liners, and most the ones that business would use, because there are certainly some out there that we wouldn't use. And then at the bottom of this, I just included all of the reading standards ones. So they're all in here. So that's how I did it, to incorporate reading and writing, but we have a communication target, which again works well for CTE. I don't know if that works well for all departments.
So, okay, we've kind of gone a couple different directions. Let's take science as an example. We have a biology course, and Erica's submitting her learning targets for that course. And there's 4 learning targets for biology, but now all of a sudden we decide, or, the 3 high schools decide that they're gonna have that one anchor reading standard that they work on all year throughout the year. Every kid in biology focuses on that. Does she then add that as a 5th learning target for Allie to enter in? No, she doesn't.
It's already part of the
Which is, okay, so bad example. So give me somebody that it wouldn't be part of your Daniel. Okay, so math, algebra, perfect. So here's algebra. He's got his learning targets he's submitted to Allie, and his teams decide that all the algebra teachers are gonna focus on this anchor reading standard. How first of all, is that realistic that you can get there? I mean, it still seems that like I'm.
Can I offer some pushback on Dan though? Because, and not on you, but on math.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
thinking of what Stephanie Harvey said, that math is a different beast.
It's unique.
And I have no issue, like, I'm all about everybody in the world should learn how to teach and instruct upon these
Because
skills.
you, what about, you love math.
I love
Say it.
math. But I just feel like
Yeah.
sometimes we lump math in, and math might have a different, really high need that isn't, I don't know. I don't
What was
want to make it
every-
a force.
I'm not going to say without, but I need to dig in a lot more ACT reading standards to determine whether or not it's viable.
Besides North, did West and South teachers have an SLO related to that though this
They
year?
had a reading
think
right
South
to Whipper, but not to ACT.
Not even
Did
at
South
thought
have it?
South
Yeah,
did.
South, every department had a
South-
strand.
Pull up their- maybe they have common assessments that are revolve around there.
Yes, they do, every team does the.
So like I said, I need to dig in more to go to the answer. I want to see how it's going. It could be, the question was,
But then-
could we add on?
Yeah, so take that as that example. I can't remember what math decided at North, but they all have one similar to
Right.
South that they owned, that they're saying, we're gonna do this one reading strand in math. If West and everybody gets on board then with that one strand, would you then, in theory, following this cycle, would you add that on as your 6th learning target to have Ally put in? I mean, are we thinking logistically that that is how it would have to roll out in order to provide feedback along the way?
I would think if there's one, yeah, that you really know what to do.
Okay.
But again, would you make it a learning target just for a reading standard, or would you make it more generic?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Well, then how would that make sense for us when our targets are listening, reading, and speaking already? And we have this extra really targeted reading one.
No, because it wouldn't be a target if you already have a reading target. It wouldn't be an additional.
Right,
target.
if it's in there, it wouldn't be an additional for you.
You would
Honestly,
just use
teachers-
that rubric. You would use that reading
Just use a
rubric.
different rubric.
We would prefer to use our own new rubric, but they use the ACT rubrics for their SLOs. That's how they target that, but they don't count that. I have to double check that. I don't think my teachers count that as part of a grade.
Which is interesting, because why would they use something completely separate from their instruction? and
They
assessment?
just created new rubrics. So the reading rubrics are not targeted to just finding the, I think that it's more as to finding the idea. But they use the ACT ones for their SLO. That's South and at North, West, sort of.
But are they doing extra assessments just for their SLO? Wouldn't you use
They'll
your
do it
regular
as part of-
assessments that you're doing for
Yes.
class anyway?
Yes. Most places. I can't tell you what West is doing.
Just seems like extra work.
I know.
agree.
It seems like there's a mismatch between the two rubrics in one way or another, like either one,
Right.
like they somehow, there's a problem with one of them, or both of them.
Yeah.
Well, the reading, our learning target for reading is pretty broad. It's not just, I can identify the main idea. It goes along from main idea all the way up to, it's similar to that ECT reading string.
It's a purpose question. There was a, reading is a purpose, but there was a purpose within a site to find out how you're not specific reading string. So you need a rubric to get there, to get that rubric. The question for Dan is it an instructional target, or is it a way to get the data out? Which is two different things. If it's just a way to get the data out, saying we have to target it away, or label it or tag it away is the way to get the data. If it's an instructional focus, then that's a different purpose to that.
If it's a labeling idea, that could be done really easily. If it's not about it, it's not shared. And if it's a graded idea, we just get 2 grades. We give a grade for that target, and then we give a,
Are you gonna get pushback on that? I mean, 2 grades, one of them just for the sole purposes of collecting data, but not instructionally doing anything with that?
I would
Yeah,
never, I wouldn't want to ask a teacher to do that.
Right,
That
it
sounds
doesn't
So-
make sense.
it's going to, if we're going to grade it, that's what happens. Make it logistically make sense. Unless and I could be misinformed on space. if they perfectly align, I think you probably have to do it once. But
And I think that's just what you're saying, like, pick ones that make sense.
Right.
Like,
Right.
like in,
Then it would
like
be
argument
one-
is one of them. In math, I think of how much you need to justify and explain your thinking, like, that might be one that makes sense, whereas main idea, you'd just be jumping through hoops to have people like, what's the main idea of this word problem? Like, there
Yes.
wouldn't be a point to
you know,
it, so
always-
pick the ones that really make sense, because it should, yes, it collects data, but it should have an instructional purpose too,
Absolutely.
otherwise.
It should be both, or else
Yeah.
you're just jumping through a hoop.
Oh, sorry. I just want to be really careful though, because I think sometimes when we say reading is reading, if you dig into these standards, they're talking about text. They're not talking about a math problem. They're not talking about.
But text literacy, that text could be anything.
I know
Yeah,
text can be
yeah,
anything.
text is anything.
I know
Yeah.
that text can be anything, but if you dig in to analyze how one or more sentences in somewhat challenging passages relates to the whole passage when the function is subtle. That's word for word.
The one she just said about justifying your, I know that.
That's argument.
Yeah.
Analyze how one or more sentences in more challenging passages offer reasons for
But
or
I
support
think
a
then
claim.
you write the rubric to make,
Right.
I'm
sense.
totally fine with that.
Justify why the answer.
I'm just throwing out that text, number one thing for
I have noticed
ACT
that you're
is
throwing out today instead of
she's not throwing out.
Twice you said.
I would like to
throwing
throw
out.
out the idea. Okay, so two things. One, obviously with my learning, my L1 and stuff, this makes sense for her because of like claims and all that stuff. That's not an issue. Because that was my biggest struggle. I see teachers who they have no idea and they're not teaching it, they're just assessing it. You know, it's better kids for it. So I think you have to probably pick ones that the ones who teach teachers how.
Absolutely.
And then my other concern comes when we talk about like math being different. I think about, you know, we sat in the quarterlies and principles and 18%. Is this gonna help you get 18?
This meaning.
This, the reading and reading rubrics? Is that what we should be
Okay.
calling our data for? Or is it merely for the building data collection?
I think I know what you're asking. I mean, you and Jason were talking about the science specific skills, et cetera. I think you don't not focus on the science skills, but it's inevitable that there's a literacy strand throughout our district and that's not going away either. And so I don't think one of us is asking to compromise your content for skill targets, but let's be real and say that everybody's goal is to focus on literacy.
It doesn't matter of the rubrics, though. I think about how in all our planning for the summer, we keep saying we want to tell teachers you read like a scientist. You read differently when you read like a historian. But we're saying assess everybody this way. You know, use this same exact rubric if you're talking about cause and effect in science and in social studies. I wonder if there's a way you want to keep it to the same rigor or the same level.
I know what you're saying.
But I wonder if that would even cause more understanding, and it would, because sometimes we're asking people to like make this leap of, well, what does that mean in science? Where if there was a rubric written to, if cause and effect is what you pick,
Right.
literacy cause and effect, but scientific literacy cause and effect, that might
I like that.
Yeah, like I would
People-
put the supporting claims
like that.
besides the R and ODA. It'd be great if they had things like using multiple data points or using multiple data to support it.
Right,
Using
but
those words in it.
But to Emily's point then, why can't that team get together and probably in 10 minutes whip out a
Oh,
one-liner?
absolutely,
you
yeah.
know?
I think
Yeah.
it's always been the ACT reading rubric.
Yeah, probably. Right.
Which will support Harvey's content specific.
Right. And still having that conversation of, like, you have to be careful then that it doesn't become just like what everyone individually thinks about cause and effect. There
No.
still has to be this
Correct.
level of it, but
Correct.
having that voice of, where it makes sense.
Yeah, because no one's ever said, these are the strategies we're working on with our kids, it's these are the rubrics you're focusing on. That you're focusing on. It's always been-
That's where and you guys, I will be totally, I have been just struggling with my L1, like struggling. And to me, that's where this makes the most sense now. Like if each department picks an ACT strand, my high leverage practices, what I deliver PD on, are gonna be directly connected to that. In my land, that just, I'm at peace with that. Like, it makes sense to me, and I don't know if it makes sense, if that's, I know.
Yeah.
I'm still a little
Reading
stuck on the
teacher.
data, on like how you're getting it though. Like, I still don't know that we've resolved that if I embedded in a learning target, how I'm getting the data. But
The key is if you pull it, the teacher might be able to get that data and look at it real easily just for their one class or all their classes. The key is how we pull it as a system or pull it as a whole group of all ninth graders, all eighth graders. I'm not quite sure the easiest way to do that. I think we have to talk to Allie about that. So I'm not sure on that.
So I think next steps should be, and somebody tell me if your brain's going here, what you think the next steps would be. I'm thinking that the next steps would be in the next 2 months for the coordinators to have conversations with, I guess this is high school specific here, right?
is there a reason why the 13, 15 man couldn't go down to 8th grade?
A what?
The 13, 15 man couldn't go down to 8th grade.
We do it.
And is there a reason why that couldn't be? I'm just asking.
No, that's why I said is this just high school, because, yeah,
As far as I know, the middle schools have not adopted any of this. They know that they need to
Yeah.
have a
No,
list
they
in place,
haven't, but I'm just asking if it would, I mean, if
Absolutely.
ACT,
I encourage them to do this.
I wonder if we're a year away, knowing that none of us have really had those targeted conversations with our 8th grade teachers and or principals, that maybe if that's something big scale or big picture that we look at, that we infiltrate down and start to have those conversations with our middle school principals and teams about, but not for next year, maybe 16, 17 moving forward.
Are they gonna have the same SLOs next year in middle schools? Similar to what the high schools did, is that?
Well, middle schools, from what I recall, had more of their math focus, did they, right?
Now, you said, or math,
Math.
now, yeah.
And I don't know if I can recite to you some of the middle school teachers' SLOs. I'm not sure. I need to get schooled on that.
The schools or the teachers?
Teacher level middle school SLOs, I'm not sure. I haven't.
They know that, at least in my area, they know that they had to be, well, my area is just literacy focused. So I have some teachers, most are focusing on reading. I have one that chose to focus on speaking.
Yeah, I don't have any examples I can give you. I apologize for that. I don't know if there's anybody else. They're all over? Okay. So so going back, would the next steps then be for us as coordinators to have, again, those similar to what Rachel did today, just Amy would go out and pound the pavement with CTE and say, hey, if you guys had to decide on one, I was going to use Nadine's name, but whoever my 3 peeps are across the 3 schools, could you decide on one and just have that conversation with the principal to say, would this be a guided focus? Would you be okay with this? My whole department's going to focus on this strand, and then knowing that they would own it and want to commit to that by the end of the year going into next school year. Is that doable for the next year? I think the high schools are so close. I think they would welcome this.
My question is, so I know both North and South are already doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know, to be honest with you, I'd have to look if they're doing the same one. But let's say they, and I know Family Consumer Science is doing the same one as Science, I believe at South. I think so. But let's say, whatever it is, but let's say cause and effect. Is it okay if they focus on that again next year, or are they supposed to pick a new one?
No, I
Okay.
would say, going to Emily's point, what's the most relevant for?
Okay.
But here's the thing though, to me, like you brought this up, Erica, it has to be, like, I would like English at all 3 buildings to be focused on the same one.
Yes.
Okay, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
But then my second thing
Yeah,
would be.
I agree.
Okay, and I gotta go back, because actually, this came up in the meeting this morning, and we started that way, saying everybody was gonna be one, and then we went the other way too, and there's a reason for that, and I have to go back and look at my notes, so we said everything was different. So my point is gonna be, to me, your next step is this team has to sit down together with principals to talk, like, this has to be kind of a united front. I don't want this to feel like the coordinators are asking you to do
No,
this
I
and the
just-
principals.
No, no.
Okay, so like if the
No.
principals are just as on board with every department's gonna be given one or working with one.
Yeah, I mean, I could after this meeting send out that email to the three high school principals and say, hey,
Yeah.
just so you know, this is what our conversations have been. I cannot even imagine Becky and Tim and David would be like,
Yeah, no.
I mean, because again, they were that collaborative work with the SLO this year, and it would just make sense. I mean, why wouldn't they want their teachers to work smarter and to help focus their work from a
With a
department
side note,
coordinator level?
maybe some modification as necessary to make it fit for our specific areas.
And again, right, my first challenge on that would be though, again, don't disregard the one-line rubric because you don't like it. I think I would challenge us to look at our teaching and instructional practices a little bit deeper before we just go out and kind of throw away the one-liners. There was a lot of great work put in there. I'm not saying that they're end all be all because I agree with Rachel that there are some tweaks that need to be made, but for the most part, the language in those rubrics is
Came right
at,
up.
yeah, I mean, it's at the level where it needs to be, so.
I guess my request would be that you or whoever give us training on those rubrics, because I can use them and I have worked with them and my teachers are using them, but are we doing it in the right way? I don't know. And even though I think I can figure it out, I'd rather get training so then we can provide our teachers training on how those rubrics should be used.
Can I share?
So with
Emma?
this, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Like at one ASW meeting at South, we had a really fluid conversation in December at their hotel about, so they're going through the process, they're evaluating, they're filling out the form and they're discussing, but I had one teacher just stop and he just said, you guys, how do you determine what gets a 2 and what gets a 3? Because now South was very, very strict about how those common assessments for their SLO are laid out. 2 multiple choice, every question goes up at the OK level. It's a more open-ended response. Well, I find value to that, but some are saying, well, if they get the level 1 DOK question right, they get a 1 on the rubric, or they at least get a 1 on the rubric. So I think there's some value in that. And I don't think we ever came to a real conclusion about, we all are using the same rubric, we're all using the same assessments. We're discussing where our kids fell on that assessment, but do you have the same understanding as me as what a 2 should be? Can we swap papers and can you tell me what you think? I don't think my team has gotten to that point yet.
Girlfriend,
South
you
or
are
at-
like, the fact that you're even having those conversations about the real reliability and fidelity of analyzing assessments is like step 4, and we're like on step 1, creating a common assessment. Yeah, so.
Yeah, not the
I mean,
whole-
yeah, so you go, girl. I hope in 4 years we can all be sitting around this table having that conversation, because we're not having conversations about what learning targets we don't have and what assessments we don't have. That'll be, you know what I'm saying, that we'll be in a place where we can maximize and have those conversations. I would
Well,
look
let's get our
forward to that.
capacity built around that and how to be able to navigate. I mean, he's been a huge help, I will say that right now, in helping my team with rubric design. I wonder where I would be if I was a first year teacher having learned this now, where would I be today to know some of this? So the better capacity I have built around being able to navigate and help my teachers reach that consensus, whatever point they're at, whether it's that point or we tweak our rubrics, we're not even using the rubrics. I have some places like that, and then middle school's a little different game. So I agree, I think I would like my capacity built around that, to be able to take the teachers, whatever site they're at, and help them. High schools, I've had a lot more work with SLOs, even though I've reached out to middle schools. Middle schools, it's kind of all over the place, which I think they need that for ownership, where it's been sort of dictated to at the high school, but.
Quiet over there. Is there anything you want to say?
No, I agree. That's a great idea, especially in the light of the learning you've done with Stephanie Harvey and the work that was trying to get different ones. The groups are written with this level of understanding, now we know more. So we continue to refine.
I think the rubrics are fantastic.
Yeah,
going on record as saying that. I think they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Rachel Hermy.
not
she
trying
loves
to do
math.
it, trying to understand how they're
And how to
applying
apply
it.
it, yeah.
Know what
Because
something is
that's,
and
like
try
I
to-
said, I mean, we were in a meeting with someone and they wanted to change the language to be more student friendly. And one of the things we tried was Danielson, students using technical vocabulary.
Well,
Keeping
and
the language of core in there because that's what they need
yes,
to be
and how many
doing.
times have we said, right, we want to make it student friendly, and then they take the ACT and how,
Right.
really?
You know what's so important about that too is making teachers language friendly, that we're all talking about this in like
That same conversation came up last night in our team meeting. There's two rubrics, our listening and our reading are the same. Interpretive, you're still interpreting, so interpretive listening and interpretive reading. My middle school teachers would like it to be more, student friendly as well. So I said, hey, reword it, but had I known that piece before, I would have wanted to be able to use that. What are we doing now?
Where were you?
Well, and I think when you look at them, I mean, they're written like we write rubrics where the word just becomes higher level.
Right, yeah.
And so if I don't have a lot of experience with point of view, I'm going to have a hard time deciding if you're identifying it, summarizing it, inferring it, or if you're evaluating it.
Right.
And so, like you're saying, Rachel, that it doesn't really matter. I mean, it matters what's on the paper, but it's more of that understanding of what does this look like in my content area? What would it look like for a student to write a response that shows that they're summarizing it versus they're evaluating it? And how do we have those conversations?
And then bring it over and you talk about it with the team. Right.
Can I ask you a very innocent question? Maybe it's because I'm also trying to like bust out budget at the same time. But do you presume that your departments will be using each strand of this rubric, or are you proposing that perhaps they pick one of those ACT strands and then one of those rubrics?
I propose there's eight categories. Each department picks a category, and there might be 2 or 3 strands under that category, but you're doing all 3, like you're owning all of the rubrics under that category.
So this is so interesting because we have this thing in the ESL world called model performance indicators. They're indicators for what teaching performance looks like for a child who does not know the language. And we've been waiting a really long time to be able to write these things because if you don't know the language, you're going to be stuck with no evidence for potentially several years. And the message that the child receives is that's because of you. Like, we have a problem. But we have the ability to take a rubric like this and look at what the skill is and be able to trace what that skill looks like for students and their students in 2, 3, 4, 5. And are like dying to do that work, but we need this in place. There's just tremendous potential to really differentiate instruction once we begin to really get to a place where we can say, yeah, this is what we're doing and we're love it.
I think those would be the fans of focus too. Like teachers would be
We also would give you the ability on your BB9 or wherever to say, like, here's a really great example of what proficiency looks like in cause and effect in biology. And here's, not that everyone's going to do that exact same prompt or whatever, but here's an example of what it looks like compared to here's an example of what it looks like when they're just identifying them. And just being able to have some of those exemplars to, so I agree, we want to get to that point of calibrating all of that, but those might be baby steps towards calibrating, being able to say, hey, look here, and you can see examples as a teacher, but also as, you know, when we're asking teachers to model their writing, if they don't know exactly what they should be modeling, like, okay, pretend that public. Yeah, but model that example that you just found on BB9, you know, and
I took that feedback very seriously that you gave me the other day, so I will be certain to not post things that I shouldn't. I felt very bad about that.
you
So,
can post it. I just was
no,
surprised.
so I
I need to add a little
I
filter.
felt
Ask
bad.
my
I was like,
permission before you post
I was like,
anything.
oh, okay. So I was so energized, but I wanted to ask the thought, and I was like, I can't ask. It's not my original thought. So
See, it was a no-win situation. I would have slept with plagiarism.
Yeah, either way, I
I'm
was-
mad that you just
Exactly,
put
like-
my name on there.
I totally said that. She's using it now.
So there's,
I need that back.
Thank you.
I don't know where Wisconsin's at, I only looked at world language stuff, but there's some states out there that not for like rubric work, but by proficiency, they post exemplars right there for teachers to listen to and to view
Are
and
we
to
putting
read.
it in my
So
memo?
as we start building our units.
Well, I
think
want
we
to
talked
put this
about,
with my
like,
memo,
putting in what
please. Like
what
honestly,
a one is
staple
and
it
what
to
a
them.
three, oh, sorry.
Can you wait like a
On our
half
new
hour?
ones, what
I don't want them to be separate. I want,
emerging and then proficient,
Yes.
have one of each.
yes.
No, we
So-
had talked about that in the curriculum days.
I'll
of
come
having,
find you
like,
after this.
Be able to post what a one, not an example of every single level assessment, but what an emerging.
Oh.
Okay.
This is our then all of our L1s.
For sure. Absolutely.
I don't,
That's
it's not enough for me.
Don't get
I-
me nervous. Ooh.
So, I mean, I'm gonna do that in my work, but that can't be the only thing.
But we
I
said
think-
our L1s aren't the only thing, remember?
Right,
Okay.
right.
And that, okay, so,
Anyone have a plug for me?
and I only asked,
Looks like you gotta go get
I
mine.
need this, we need to see, I want to review this more. One of the conversations that also came up this morning was just like, if you're the right teacher, are you gonna deal with the school L1, your coordinator who's got a different L1, kind of like the conversation we had last week. And so to me, that's why I say that, like, if all of our L1s are this, which we know is gonna directly connect to the school goal, now, no matter what teacher you are, it's not feeling like something more. It's feeling totally connected. And it doesn't mean you're not doing, I mean.
Oh, I'm not saying I wouldn't use the rubric. I'm just saying, for me to dig in on just that, I mean, and I know it's not just that one thing. I don't know, it seems limiting to me.
It's not.
And I added in my L1, intentional planning around the gradual release model. And I said, one of the things we talked about this morning was, am I gonna collect and get feedback on intentional planning in the gradual release model around one of these skill bands? Like, that's my focus. So my focus is on intentional planning, but it's now narrowed to like this skill band. Intentional planning around how to close read. Intentional planning. So I feel like I'm doing much.
Inquiry thing, where
Well,
does that fit in?
I bridge it as inquiries here, and the gradual release model is the how to do the
Right.
inquiry model.
Right, but now if your L1 is on a specific reading strand,
My L1 is still going to read.
How you assess it.
My L1 is still going to read to maximize literacy skills in students by designing instruction around the gradual release of responsibility framework. My theory of action is being intentional about inquiry-based instructional planning. So that's the GER. And then embedding ACT reading strands. And I don't want to read you word for word.
and that's
But there's
fine. So you're still, it's not that reading strand is the only thing you're saying in your L1.
No,
I
But
thought that's
that's
what you
the-
were saying
that's
before.
the only thing I have right now that I can measure. I'm getting held up on how I'm going to measure and progress monitor, and so that's where that
Well, I
ACT
said the
strand
same
comes
thing.
into me. Like, that's a no-brainer.
Quantitative data. And
Yeah.
You're gonna pull in probably other perceptual data.
Yep.
My measurement can come through that, can we tag things? I really want to be able to tag things so that I can have teachers reporting an assessment, like, about intro data or evaluating models, they can tag it with that term, you can see, is the kid getting, are the kids getting better?
How close are we on that with Infinite Campus, that repository that we had talked about at that meeting? About being able to bring, because that's where this came up, I believe, right?
I
Being able
think
to
at
bring in
least
this
2 years out.
Really? Even to be able to bring in the ACT standards, so he can pull one of those ACT standards as well as his other standards for math, and I can pull
Well,
the
no.
ACT.
That's different.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that's what we're talking about for next school year, is that you would have at least one of those. to
That's what I'm,
focus
yeah,
on.
not the I guess not the repository, just the ability to build in those standards and that teachers can.
Well, is what we want for next year.
Yes,
Sorry.
so that is gonna happen for next year. Yes. Routing and
Yeah,
pulling.
what Dan showed me, that one thing we were playing around with, it's possible.
Yeah.
Which is the teller.
It's possible.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is that I am going to reach out to Becky, David, and Tim. I'm gonna just tell them what we talked about and that they should be prepared in the next month and a half that you guys will be having conversations with your like course-alike teams to define what that anchor reading standard is. And I'm thinking in my head like a middle of May meeting to put this on the agenda again and just say where we are. Some of you might be signed, sealed, and delivered by then. Somebody might still be working on it, and that's fine. Does that seem fair?
This
Can we
category or
decide that
the one
category?
line?
Can the coordinator team decide that category first?
How
Because
would you like your English teacher to feel when you tell them what to do?
I'm not saying that, but I
Okay.
want to make sure that all 8 strands, if we all come back to the table and we only have 4 out of the 8, there's
But
4
again,
strands.
you don't want, and I get that. I'm all like, there's a philosophy of like cover all 8 within our district, and then there's a philosophy of find something that's relevant to that area. And I think for buy-in and ownership and fidelity and all of the above, that needs to come organically before we say we're just going to cover all 8. That's I don't know, because then
I
you're
don't think
forcing a
all
tech
8
ed
are
teacher
going
to.
to fit into, if you say, well, this one isn't covered, it may not fit in half of the departments. I don't know.
Right. So
Yeah.
So are you asking for the category, or are we asking for the one line rubric skill?
Category.
The whole category. That's gonna be a tough one in my area. Team development.
But again, I would ask, North and South are doing it now, so find out what they
Two of
did.
them. So two of them under that.
So find out what they did and which they,
So if we're gonna do this as a first step with the principals at the high schools, is there a way to plant the seed then, or they teach, train the trainer or whatever for middle school?
I think it'll continue to be a conversation that we have with principals through quarterly meetings and otherwise. I mean, every time we were with middle school principals this year, we always bragged about how the high school principals had a similar goal, et cetera. So they're aware of it. I think, again, that'll be just our job, a work in progress to see where that evolves. On its way down, with the work.
And you're going to connect them with Allie about just options, maybe of how that will look in grade books to be able to pull that data.
Well, again, if I'm not thinking of this correctly, you guys would add that as an actual learning target on what you submit to Allie. So again, all biology courses would have that in essence to like pull from and give feedback on live.
I thought that was the case if you didn't have a target that it already fit under. Like I already have a
All
reading
right,
target.
then you're fine.
So just
But the
asking Allie
areas
though
that-
how they could tag that
Right.
so that it's still.
But I don't want the teachers to have to dog and pony asterisk parentheses, whatever.
We'll just ask. I'll ask her when maybe.
But
But
I
I'm
don't
just
wanna-
thinking of just a little, like when my teachers go to reading, just a checkbox that this assignment, I assess this.
Because my reading target is like this.
What am I missing,
This is
Jason?
one skill that they're probably not assessing every single time they do reading. They may not be assessing
Right.
this.
Right.
So they're already doing a big assessment, and they're gonna include this for their SLO, this particular main idea. But on other reading ones, when they take it under the reading learning target, it may not be main idea that they're really honing in on.
Or
So
maybe
it
it's
would be
writing.
an
That's why I
add-on.
like that generic, because if they're assessing writing, I don't want to have a target for writing and then a
Right.
target for a
No.
specific reading standard.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Two parts of the conversation. One is the instructional piece.
Yeah.
Teaching this so students get better. And then there's a reporting element. And then there's also the organized data. So the question we'll ask Allie is the quickest way to be able to mine that data with knowledge would be another part. Because that separates that from an instructional reporting out doing the reading piece.
So she'll
that
probably
allows-
tell us what she told
and we'll see
North
what-
this year to do the hashtag.
Hashtag.
I mean, that's what the high schools decided, is to use the hashtag IDT, hashtag CLR, hashtag KRG.
As part of their assignment name.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Maybe if the campus community, there's another way to do that. That we're not aware of, since I'll happily give that information.
Okay,
And then we'll come back after to see what
okay,
that tells us and then I'm going to finish the rest of it.
okay. Alright, good. We're not done with one yet, just the last part of one was the citizenship rubric, I guess, and Jay, I've been out of the loop a little bit on this. Are we, again, how will Ally know? I mean, we're still doing it on a pilot basis. How will she know who to turn that on switch on? So we know, like, does Matt Carroll have access to the citizenship rubric, or how are we gonna do that?
Right now, it's on, so the teachers who piloted it, it's on, if they taught human geo, it shows up on every human geo teacher in the district. It shows up for that course, and then teachers can hide it and not report out on it, and parents don't see it then. So it's there.
So is that an expectation that we're asking our teachers to also do before they leave, or what is our position on that? What are we doing with that?
The message was given at teacher leader that it was going to be optional for them to use it next year.
But so does that mean that Ally has to have the capability to have all 1,000 teachers have access to those?
Yeah, but she would just add that, like, just add it to the courses. So like when she doesn't have to go in and do every individual teacher.
Okay.
She just would attach it to the course.
So then, again, my question would be, and for simplicity, the spreadsheet that Amy has, I should be able to click on any tab and see which courses in science are using that or not. So that's a column that needs to be added in there too?
No, because if teachers choose not to use it, me, that's just somewhere
So
like
it's
as a
teacher
district,
specific.
you would,
Okay.
or secondary district, you would say, here's a citizenship rubric that is optional for any teacher to use in
Okay.
his or her course. I don't think you'd have to, think I'm missing something.
Well, so right now, and sitting with that, what you proposed, there's probably 10 or 15 versions of that exist in
Yeah.
the system. So the goal of the pilot was to say, let's have one on the secondary level, and the choice is whether you enter into it or not, versus having a separate north one, a separate south one, a separate west one. That would, I think, is the goal.
Yeah.
But then the option is I'm not going to report on those.
Yeah. And special ed came up with their own North Star norms. Nobody is using
It's a STEM essentially.
Wait,
STEM
Bruce,
essential
the look
things.
on Bruce's face doesn't know what spec ed is.
West teacher leaders, when they floated out when we first presented it, like go and collect feedback, they collected feedback from their special ed teachers, and special ed created their own rubric.
Well, no, this is a great conversation considering
so
our two
they
coordinators are
created-
here and they
They
don't know
created
about
their own that they said, could we use this for special ed students instead of the district one? And we said, since it's a pilot, sure, use it if you want.
The challenge, again, just to remind everyone right now, if you enter day one using this class, all Algebra 1, all Algebra 1 courses, then standards would be blank and everyone else is up things. That's the challenge of how it exists right now. But if we can find what we want it to look like, here's the criteria that we're running these, so we can work to try to maybe work around that.
So
I would
you-
recommend that citizenship for special ed students does not look different than citizenship for regular kids.
I agree.
Let me
just say this is a good lesson for us because at this table, we often point fingers up and outward about how we don't systematically do things. And this is a prime example of us not doing something. With something as big as Waukesha for Learning and or citizenship rubric piloting, what we don't want to have happen is a haphazard way of like even doing a pilot. And then some people knowing or not knowing and coordinators not even knowing, and it just makes me nervous in a lot of levels.
I would add this. I'm looking at the rubric right now, and I would add once again pilot. So we went in saying like pilot,
There.
but looking at what special ed sent, it's the same 3 categories. They added a column for individualized growth and have some language around individualized growth. Student makes some growth based on ability. For example, I'll share this with you guys.
And I'm gonna say, I'm
Um,
gonna push Rachel a little bit too to say, although she's navigating in this world, this isn't exactly her world. And I'm putting Jason on the spot to say, yeah, Jason needs to take ownership here with this and me to make sure we're doing this right. I mean, this this isn't our Swap the Shop for Learning Coordinator, number 2. So I don't know.
So we purposely said it in pilot. When the
Okay.
question came, can we go off here's the thing that Rachel's group vetted and adopted in the spring, these 3. The one that we said that's the pilot. And then when we were in the flux of customized local solutions around, let's not say no and make rules. When the pilot came down and said, we want to pilot this, your teacher leader said, can we use a no star norms? Well, we can either say no and make another rule, or we can say, why don't we just go try it? So we put no star norms in. We granted the special education request to try something different because the goal isn't made to come back to the table and say, okay, we're going to have 1.
Okay.
But the only way we'll know what the 1 is if we get a little bit different. So that was the thinking going, it was purposeful. and
Okay.
intentional.
Okay.
But I agree that I was uncomfortable because we did the work to get this one and now someone wants to make their own. But in light of the climate of One Shot for Learning, we thought, yes, it's better than no.
Okay. Fair enough. So let us know, I guess, too, if we need to continue to what we need to do. I think we're going to probably be pretty loose again on the pilot. Do we know how many teachers in our system are currently piloting?
Yeah, and this is only at West. This is not everywhere. Yeah, we know how many people are piloting, and
How many?
I gotta pull up the sheet. But there was a decent amount.
Okay.
Every building had some. But one of the things that we said at the last teacher leader meeting when we rolled this out was we want as much feedback, like Jason just said. We
Okay.
went in with, we want 1 for next year. That was when you stepped in and said, we're not going to make teachers use it.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like we've tried to make this as,
Okay. Non-threatening.
Yeah,
teacher,
like- yeah, not a rule, but a resource,
yeah.
guideline.
All right, cool. So we have made timeline and we'll do, okay, sweet. We're doing good on time. Number 2, are we all, any questions on just number 1?
Can I just, as long as we're still there, I
Yes.
shared that document with you.
Okay.
And I threw in the, if you have a chance to pull it up, I threw in the formula for counting the characters. And if you look at business or family consumer science or tech ed, you can just see how I set it up. And I had classes I merged and then put each learning target in. So if I forgot anybody, let me know. But
Thank you so much for doing that.
72.
oh, thank you. Yes, I didn't put a number in there.
Well, so how come some years are over that?
Okay, so that's where I had to go to the revised target to get it under, oh, was it 72 or 75?
I could have sworn it was 72.
I think you're right.
I think
I wonder if I have a
I'm-
space in
I want to say I'm 99%
Teachers
positive
read.
72.
We adopted their learning targets in the fall. They combined them. How come when I sent them to Ally, she never said that these are above the curriculum limit and this needs to be cut down?
She was doing 100 million.
But I mean, like,
targets.
could I look and see what it would look like in a report card time? Because my
You
teachers
have
have never
access
said
to
this
that.
has gotten cut off or anything. 'Cause I'm looking at some of them, because they combined reading and writing, and so obviously the curriculum is greater.
I already got
I
an
saw
email
your
from
login.
Wendy
Yeah.
asking to explain it. So are you gonna talk with them? Do you want me to just type an explanation? Have them-
Oh, because you just sent the document without any explanation.
Yes,
right?
I just
Okay.
shared
Now
it,
I'm
yes.
just wondering almost what my teachers have said.
Maybe just a
like,
paragraph
hey,
and
this
I'll,
is-
I mean, yeah, I'll
I
follow
will.
with them, but,
She said they're meeting, Jason,
oh, yeah.
do you,
Thousand.
Wendy Schwengel said that her and Ally and Joey, I think, are meeting with you in April.
Yes.
So I shared this document. She's already asking, could you tell me what this is?
What to do with it.
So
The learning target
learning-
document to Ally
this
Pop.
document,
I mean, I'll follow
oh, I
up,
didn't
but-
share it with Ally Pop. But anyway,
I can talk to them about that.
but when you meet with them, like I'll send a brief description, but then can I say Jason will follow up with you at your meeting in April?
Right.
And
Thank
then-
you.
We also need to find out if there's
Okay.
another place where the elementary version is kept somewhere.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry, I'm
It's
not,
somewhere, and I'll dig into that as well. But,
okay.
I am
But I
not,
think for Joey and Ally, and Wendy in this case, just the high school
Yes.
ones.
But
Thank you.
just when you said that, I wanted to.
I get it.
all right, cool. Numero 2 is the push-ups. So
I think
pull-ups.
And do some push-ups and
So-
throw up.
It's a nice visual.
How? Brian's thinking about that, considering my wardrobe conversation before I came. All right.
Notice that I'm really quiet the whole meeting.
Yeah.
That's right.
You're still stunned, right? You're still stunned about. So how many of you have heard me talk about wanting us to do our jobs differently since I got here? Okay, so it's maybe not new, but I'll be honest with you and say, even when I was working underground, I was thinking, and Sharon, I think I told you this, when you and I were at that conference,
fair.
I sort of knew I was going to be transitioning, and I was like giving her, well, what do you think about this coordinator model or something like this? And she's like probably thinking, why are you asking me all this? So, and having lived the world of a coordinator too, I had some things in my head, and very honestly, I didn't think we were going to go to this quickly next school year, but in talking to Bob Amperline and Ryan Crone, Bob had similar concerns at the elementary level, and that was projected and communicated by his elementary principals most recently, with a lot of the EC shifts happening. And so Ryan was totally committed to supporting this, and it made sense. So I want to kind of see what you think of it. This is the most, on the attachment, I sent you guys an email that basically took a picture of my whiteboard brainstorming in there. So I apologize that it's really bad. But the model would be, and he said to just worry about the 3 face-to-face, schools right now. Because STEM, we have our own kind of model that we're working on with STEM. So really it would be the 3 vertical clusters as you see them. And so the boxes mean, like, I'll just take Butler and North as an example. That is that one cluster. So how the model would look would be, out of 5 days a week, every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday morning, your home base, or where you work out of, would be North and Butler. So you're not even going to like come to Lindholm on those days. If you're like, oh, well, I have to like do email or do this project, whatever, you can do it out of the back of Eric Hill's classroom or in the coordinator office with that coach over there or something. So that's like your hub. Those, again, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday morning for 3 months. So you start up and are like ingrained and pushed into that building. So who do I have Rachel, and who is,
Right.
okay. So, and I'll give you kind of our thoughts as we were talking about this. Right now, out of the 3 high schools, we feel there's a pretty good, strong literacy presence at South and West, and it needs a little bit of work at North. North was also the first school to get devices, and so in theory, they should be ready for that sort of next step of implementation in terms of modification and really growing deeper practices and embedding those levels of SAMR at that school. So Rachel and Brian would be paired for the first 3 months, all in, all hands on deck, working on their work with those teachers. Now, if Rick Lehman calls up Brian in September and says, hey, I need this, Brian's not going to say, nope, sorry, I can't. I'm at North and Butler. Okay. But I just have to say that because okay, he's still going to be responsive, but knows that, he's really going to dig in, do the work, see it through for 3 months to try to get something really institutionalized in that building. Same thing for Rachel. And so they would be working on that North Butler coupling. In December, where you see it says December and May, those are the L's. That's like Lindholm month. So you're going to, in essence, pull out in December, get ready for the second transition, and you'll only have 2 transitions a year. You'll be then transitioning to the second 2 buildings for January, February, March, and April. And then you'll dig in as the same pair at then like South and there, and then knowing May, again, we would regroup here. Let me rewind. Every Wednesday would still be your Lindholm Day. We need that touch point here as a team. We'll still have our Wednesday coordinator meetings, and then you guys still whatever you have on Wednesday. Again, I'm not saying you have to be here all day on Wednesday, but know that from a scheduling standpoint, to have Todd touch base anybody, they know you'll be here on Wednesdays and then Friday afternoons. In hearing some of your conversations, I know you guys had a touch point on Fridays. I think before I got here, you did some learning and things together. Maybe that went away, maybe it's still here informally, but that could be something too that you guys organize as you need to connect with the work, because I know that's valuable for you. So I don't want you to feel now that, Sharon would say, well, I can't access Jason at all because I'm at, South for this time as well. So that's kind of how that would look. On the bottom of those 3 schools then, in JM, I know about your emails, your sort of transition, but I also know about Todd's conversation with you. Okay, so let me just put it that way. And when are you going on your cruise? In 10 minutes? All right, good. So let whoever, and we'll use Jamie's name. We'll just play pretend right now. Let's just say that Jamie, Jason, and who's my other one down there? Jeffrey. If your name starts with a J, you are responsible for all the buildings, right? You're one of our K-12 peeps. And so the reason I had that there is because it would probably be choice dependent on need. But you still want to try to dig in, I think, more than the model allows now. The model that we provide now is like a little bit here, there, and everywhere. And again, you can't see your work coming to fruition. So you're going to want to do an analysis to see where are we, what building needs me the most, and plant.
When you say building, do you mean like I'm not just digging in deep with humanities? I'm digging in deep with.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're humanities. But like Brian, okay. No, your department there. You're not going to be working with science teachers there.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's okay. Sorry.
So we're
I'm
not
sorry.
making a third.
Your
We're not
sorry.
doing
I don't
all-
know
Yeah.
if I said that. I didn't
No,
mean to
that
say
makes
that.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so Erica and I are gonna go to West and Les Paul, so we divide our day in half then.
Again, not percentages. You look at what the needs are at West and Les Paul. You two talk as a team, you talk with those principals, and you see how that works. But I just know, and everybody knows, that on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday morning, you're at one of those 2 places because that's what you're just doing for those 3 months.
From
September, October, November.
So we're really only hitting
2
4 of the
clusters,
6.
correct.
Okay,
Ryan's feedback was he thought 3 transitions was too much.
I'm sorry, say
Ryan thought that 3 transitions the first year was too much.
only one train. One, 2.
Correct,
Okay.
but 2
Okay, I
transitions.
just wanted to, I was confused. Okay.
Hitting all clusters in a year was too much from his lens.
So then we'll just move to the right. So Erica and I will then go January, February, March, and April for 4 months.
Yep.
Over to South and Zorn.
And of course, reevaluating as we go with anything, right? Seeing how this works, but the main purpose is to be able to see your work coming to fruition in more of a way that is not just initiate. We really want to look at that implementation institutionalized phase. So hopefully after next year, Brian could come and say, North is completely at this level, XYZ. Rachel's like, I have this many model classrooms in North by December. And just really ingrain in that look.
What is this all about?
This is like the push out model with coordinators, similar to push out, push-ups, push-out,
So pushing out what?
pushing out our
Out of the
resources.
district?
No, into our schools. You know, where the teachers and the kids and the
Well, they,
principals are?
they're always out. So what? Now what's different?
You tell me, where are they right now?
You mean there's not gonna be anybody up there?
Only 2 days a week for you, Todd, I
Who am I
know.
gonna-
That's, I know.
The candy is
Shoot.
Who am I gonna do it? Oh, my God.
That's what I'm afraid of. Trust me, this puts me, this puts, hey Todd, this really puts me at risk because this really puts me at risk being on the second floor without them. So
So you're it.
I'm
Yeah.
So
worried.
those other 3 days, you have to be here.
Jody, does it
That's
make
hilarious
sense?
because it's the truth. That's why it's so hilarious.
Yeah, well, that's hilarious.
I'm just thinking of the
I
lab
knew
site
we were
work,
going right away.
and does it make sense for Erica? And I don't know if that conversation has happened or not, but to get the lab sites up and running and be as deeply embedded in that work, does it make sense for Erica to be where her lab site is going to be starting off the year?
I don't know. I mean, in conversation, those are not, the combinations are not set in stone.
Yeah.
The framework, would be something we would want to go by. The initial thoughts when I talked to Amy on this too was the pairing of the Dan Amy was purposeful regarding the South Academies. We really feel that the South Academies still need a lot of startup help. And so that was purposeful and why we paired those two with the work that needs to be done with the South charters. So again, that could be negotiable most definitely, but
Has this been shared with principals already?
hang on, informally, they know, yes.
So hypothetically, I do TLC at South on Tuesdays. Can I still go to those on Tuesdays?
Yep.
Can I still go to North on, if their schedules stay the same?
Yep.
Are we gonna have a place to go at these schools? Or
Yes.
just hang out in the hallway?
Nope, all the schools have areas.
I know West
West,
Palm does.
West, you'll be right with Molly and Laura.
Okay.
At North, you'll probably be, depending on what happens with their EC role, you'll be with that person in that office. And South, I don't
Library.
know, I haven't asked.
We'll actually get keys. Like
Probably,
getting places
yeah,
in the
you.
building.
No, it takes at least 6 years. I still haven't
Yeah,
No.
but at North, I walk in there today and it's locked and you can't let me in and it's.
Wow, so they don't just let Todd in, they didn't let
They
you
never
in
let
either?
I was
I was told there was-
They don't want me awesome. And then on the off chance I do get in, of course, the door locks behind you. And then there's another set of locked doors, which there's no one there. And so you're like, okay, this is.
Here's the soup standing in the atrium by himself.
The only other
wouldn't let me out.
The only other building I know that's happened to me when you go in is Wisconsin Rec. Where you have like 2 sets of locked doors. We had people in there.
There you go, right?
Hey, keeping people safe.
Yeah,
Got
they changed the locks at North on the faculty lounge. I'm like, wait, am
Yeah,
I here
why?
too early? I'm like,
Yeah,
wait a
I
minute, nobody's
got to
here.
ask why they did that.
Because the students were going in there to get dollar sodas, so they
That
changed.
is, you know.
Hey, we got smart.
We've been doing
They're
that
smart.
for 25
They're going to grab some
Exactly.
popcorn.
That's
and-
smart. Problem is, students purchase from a pop machine that is no longer, the fund money, it's now school district money.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
When schools start throwing money into a pop machine and stuff, it becomes, I mean, here and there, but I mean, on a regular basis, if they're going in there. Once
Interesting.
you start putting student money in, it becomes different. Because student activity.
Hang on, I'm gonna turn us off just because we're done with the agenda items.
Is anyone else still thinking